welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I am not in Connecticut anymore, or maybe as you can tell, I'm not in Connecticut anymore. I'm back in California. And I wanted to do a follow-up video about heartbreak breakup. So I created the first video and it was all about like heartbreak. Now I want to create a video about once we kind of get through like that sad initial shock and everything like that, how do we pick up the pieces from here? How do we move forward? Because that relationship or that chapter is closing, but once we close it, like how do we know what book to pick up next and start a new book? When you first go through a breakup, there are a lot of changes in emotions. So I first thought that I was not going to be coming back to California. Like I was ready to go home. I figured my ex and I were going to be living together in Connecticut anyways. Like I'll just continue on the plan without him. And that's just what it was. I needed to allow myself to go through a range of emotions to be able to make an accurate decision. It took me basically 2 months of being in Connecticut to realize that I can't live in Connecticut, or at least not right now. There are more things that I need to do for myself that I need to accomplish while I'm in California before making a decision about moving back to Connecticut. And that's okay. So the first thing is when you are going through this time period or this situation, I need you to allow yourself to process everything and allow yourself to change your mind, because that's going to happen. When something big happens and it's a shock, it doesn't even have to be a breakup, it could be anything. When that happens, you need time to get it right because your emotions are taking over and the decisions that you're making are just based on this shocked feeling, this heartbreak, this all of these things. And that's not going to help you make the decision you need to make. So when you're trying to pick up the pieces, you have to allow the pieces to fall. You need to be able to look at them objectively. If you're still crying that they fell, we're not ready to be objective. We just need to cry and mourn the fact that the pieces are broken and they're everywhere. And once we get to the point where we're like, okay, I see you broken pieces and I understand that this is shattered and I understand I need to rebuild something. Once you're in that point, that's when you could be like, all right, let me start picking up pieces. There is a reason why it's called picking up the pieces, because you're not going to just swoop in and pick everything up at once, because that's not how life works. People don't go from being tragically hurt to being okay overnight. You literally need to pick up each piece, and each piece can represent something different. And you don't want to overwhelm yourself. That's another reason why you don't want to pick it up all at once. So when you're picking up the pieces, pick them up one at a time. Sometimes it feels easier to just look at the broken pieces and leave them where they are. Just leave them on the floor. Just let them go. They're broken. And that seems really easy. But here's the thing that I want to say, at least for myself and maybe for somebody else out there. If you leave that broken piece on the floor, you end up stepping on it, you cut yourself, it comes back to hurt you. We don't want things to come back to hurt us. What we want is to either be able to pick the pieces up and put them back together and glue them together, or pick them up and remove them in a healthy way, because that's what's going to help us move on in life. And so, like I said, it took me 2 months. I stayed in Connecticut for 2 months, and I stared at those pieces for many days. And I would sit there and I'm like, how did this break? How did all of this shatter? And it took me a while to realize it, but the pieces started to become clear to me. I see what I did wrong. Now, when I go to pick it up, I'm picking it up with a different mindset. I'm not rushing to pick it up. When I'm ready, I pick it up, and I did pick it up. And the greatest thing was that as I was picking it up, I felt more prepared to take an honest look at myself and the things that were shattered and say, okay, how do I fix this so that the next relationship doesn't end up the same exact way? How do I grow? For me, growing was coming back to California and facing the things that I didn't want to face. There are things that I did that are personal to me, and I know they're not for everybody, but if you've watched other videos, you know I journal a lot. I think it's really helpful with being reflective towards yourself and understanding yourself. There's so many airplanes that fly over here. It's just crazy, and I don't know how much the audio picks up. I know not everybody believes in God, so if this isn't for you, that's okay. You can skip over it. But if I'm trying to be honest, I got closer to God. And let me tell you why, or where that came from. There's a verse in the Bible that I've always liked. I had it hanging up in my college dorm. I have it in my room at home in Connecticut, and it's the love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it doesn't boast, it does not keep track of wrongdoings, like all of these things that love doesn't do. And then in the end, it basically says like love endures all, like real love endures all. And I started to think to myself, I have loved this verse for so long. And when I think of a real true love, I think of certain qualities and I think of not certain qualities. And I looked back on my relationship or the pieces on the floor and I'm like, no, there was pride there. There was stubbornness there. I wasn't always patient. I wasn't kind. And I loved that verse so much, but I wasn't following that verse. And I'm like, why is that? Why is it that I'm doing that? And so I decided to pick up a Bible and start reading it more. And I don't know if it has all the answers. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know for sure because I'm new to doing this. But what I know is I have learned more about forgiveness, kindness, patience, like all of these things that I'm looking for that I want to have. And it talks about it in the Bible. And so I find myself reading it more and going towards it. And it talks about other things too, quite honestly, with mental health, like about anxiety. There's a quote in there. I'm going to misquote it because I don't know the Bible all that well, but it's like something about there's no point of spending today worrying about anxiety. Like anxiety has never added on another hour to your life. It's never benefited you in a certain way. And tomorrow will bring its own set of anxiety. So instead of keeping all of that, like give it to God, like let him deal with these things, let him deal with the plans, let him be in control. And I took comfort in that, which is weird because I tend to be a controlling person, not because I want to hurt people, but because I want things to be okay. And I feel like if I have control over things, that means that things won't go wrong. But the truth is things still go wrong. And so there's some comfort in the idea of like cast those anxieties to him and let him handle it, and just me focus on being the person that can forgive, that can be patient, that can be kind, that can be all of these different things. Yeah. So moving on, we have journaling, the Bible. What else have I done to pick up the pieces? I've been very, very honest with myself. I think it's hard to pick up pieces when you're not being honest. You might be like, oh, I can easily pick up these pieces and throw them out and get rid of them. But there's like kind of some of these other pieces that are sitting on the ground that I don't want to pay attention to because they hurt a little more. It's okay to take more time to get to those pieces, but you have to get to all the pieces inevitably. I would also say getting into nature helped me pick up the pieces, which might sound cliche or it might sound random, but I've found for myself that the more I am outside, I'm in nature, I'm like connected to the universe, which not everybody believes in like the universe and everything like that and the energy in it, but I find myself feeling better when I feel connected to the earth. And I'm the type of person, I could stay inside for 2 or 3 days at a time, which is actually kind of sad when I think about it. But like I work virtually, obviously, like I live at home. So I sleep in my bed, I wake up, I brush my teeth, blah, blah, blah. I work in my home. I cook dinner in my home. I do a lot of things in my home, and I could stay in my home for a long time. But I think sometimes it like constricts our mind, and I don't want to have a constricted mind. And for some reason, when I'm outside and I'm in nature and I'm walking barefoot on the grass and I'm breathing in the fresh air and I see the sun and I hear the birds, and like I look around and I'm like, everything is so beautiful and vibrant, and it helps my mind feel free. And that could just totally be me, but I would say that that's another thing that I did. I try not to just stay in bed. I try not to stay in my room. I try not to stay in my house. I try to feel like, hey, I'm still a part of this universe. Like life might feel a little crappy for a moment, but I am a part of this universe, and I'm putting myself out there and I'm connected to it because my life is going to continue to go on. And that's a freeing, good, positive feeling. So if you can get yourself outside, stay connected, do those things, whatever it is for you, it doesn't have to be nature, but whatever it is, like go connect yourself to people, go connect yourself to the universe, and take it all in and allow yourself to go on the path you need to go on. There's so many different options, and I know I'm talking a lot of abstract thinking, but there are so many options when it comes to life, and we put our limits on ourselves. And don't ever think that you have to take the easy route. Don't ever think that you are forced to move on quickly or that you're forced to act a certain way. Like allow yourself to do what you need to do, and you will pick up those pieces because people are resilient and we keep moving because life keeps moving. There's nothing we could do to stop it. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that it touched the people that it needed to touch in terms of like, I know it's not going to connect with everybody, but this is my journey and I wanted to give an update because, like I said, there's the initial shock in realizing that something is over, that a relationship is over, but then there's still next phases that we tend to not talk about. Like we talk about the heartbreak, we talk about the sadness, but what about after the sadness? Like I process the sadness, I don't feel sad, but I still feel like there's a lot more that needs to come next after that. And so this is kind of like, once this video is meant for once you get past that sad point and you start to think like, okay, it's time to continue to move on, and how do I do that? Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. But keep continuing to be resilient and push yourself, and you're gonna make it.